What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Aftersound here, bringing you Splinterlands content daily. We also stream on this channel here Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sunday mornings US time. So come by and say hello. Okay, so I have been mulling this in my head for a while, just kind of letting the thoughts float around, and I feel like I've finally been able to articulate my overall thesis on what is the core issue within Splinterlands, and then how can we either fix it, or is it fixable, or how do I see things playing out in the future? So just a quick history lesson here. I'm looking at the price of DEC. Now, the first instance where DEC was being tracked from a price perspective or value perspective was in October of 2020. And you can see along this time, I don't know that we get above the peg. I mean, there might be small instances where we get above the peg. Most of the time, we are staying well below the peg, or at about, not well below, but we are staying at about the peg. Now, in July, this is the crucial moment here because we get the SPS airdrop, and of which DEC is tied 1-to-1 with airdrop points. So you see this massive rush in as people realize just how much value DEC has and how much utility DEC has as an airdrop point. Right, then we follow this through September of last year. Bitcoin takes a nice little dump, so the market follows suit, and then we actually decouple from Bitcoin and the rest of the market because towards the end of September, and probably this date right here, Friday, September 24th, because they were doing the AMAs on Fridays at that point in time, and they were still AMAs, not town halls, but at that point in time, what ends up happening, they announce Chaos Legion. They announce the fact that Chaos Legion is going to require SPS staked in order to get vouchers for the presale. So everybody rushes into SPS. People also realize that they can get way more SPS by holding DEC. So as both assets are closely correlated, we get this massive run up to 1.5 pennies, which is probably the golden time, right? Where we were double dipping in DEC value at that time, as well as DEC issuance. There was more value as well as more DEC hitting the market. So the game was literally printing so much value, so much amount of money in rewards for everybody. Excuse me. So what ends up happening is we get to the pre-sale, and people realize that they have people realize that they're not going to have enough SPS and therefore, DEC in order to get a significant amount of vouchers. So they decide to sell off. You have a lot of people who lose interest in the game, or a lot of people just focus on the long term. They don't care. Then Bitcoin has its run up to its most recent all-time high in November. So we kind of follow suit. And as soon as that all-time high and the crypto markets cool off, boom, 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 we are all the way down. And this is the closest we've been to our to the peg in a very long time. I mean, we're coming up on maybe 9.5 months at this point in time. So this right here was never supposed to happen. So when I distill this down into what is the main issue here that has caused bots, that has caused win trading, that has caused draining of the pool, that has caused asset values to decrease, that has caused a whole slew of issues and problems for this game. It's this right here. So at the end of the day, the big, and I'm not going to say fatal flaw because I don't think that it's going to kill the game, but the big mistake that was made, and the team has admitted this, right? So I'm not just trying to call it out for that reason alone. I'm just trying to pinpoint it as the primary reason why we are feeling all of the issues now. And that is the fact that DEC was tied to the airdrop 1-to-1. Okay. What that ended up doing was cascading a bunch of problems, because sure, there were bots before, but the bots never had the incentive to farm rewards at the scale that they did until we were printing massive amounts of money in rewards. Now, I've done the math on several different videos before, but you'll know that when we were at the peg, we're printing $1,000 worth of DEC, $1,000 worth of DEC in rewards, and distributing that to players every single day. When we were at this point in time, we were printing $225,000, almost $250,000 in this time in October. And all these other times we were printing anywhere between 200,000 and 1,000. So that is just, this is what caused the primary issues, and it was I would say a pretty big oversight by the team. Obviously, they went through this. They probably didn't realize the scale at which it would allow them to grow. Because what ended up happening is the game went from anywhere between 3 to 8,000 daily active users all the way up into the hundreds of thousands, maybe even 500,000 at one point. I know we're floating around 400,000 at this point, but I've been maintaining that a majority of those are bots, and I'm sure there's plenty of real players who have left by this point in time, or at least cashed out, or are no longer interested because the rewards are not as good as they were during this point in time. Now, here's the thing. The rewards were never supposed to be that good. So if you joined at any point in this time frame between July of last year and we'll just call it like mid-November or December, if you joined at any point, you got to experience kind of this golden age of Splinterlands, this massive euphoric boom before the expected and absolutely warranted bust that has happened. Because if anybody had been looking at this and truly looking at this, they would have known that this is not sustainable, that this is not what the game can do in the long run, right? To be able to pay full-time salaries to people for playing a game. That was never the point of play to earn, right? And this is the harsh truth that I think we are as a community and we as an overall play to earn space, because remember, it wasn't just Splinterlands at the time. It was all of the metaverse tokens really pumping. But as a play to earn space, what people are realizing is that this whole like Axie scholarships, this whole, or botting, whatever it is, it's not sustainable in the sense that you can like go and just, quit your job and be playing a game all the time, right? You're not going to get that from playing the game. Sure, there are people making significant amounts of money, but that's because they either own a ton of assets already, which they are renting out, which, like I said, I look at that like digital real estate, or they own a lot of assets, they're getting it from the airdrop. So there's obviously ways to make incredible amounts of wealth here, and a lot of value is still being printed every single day, both in DEC and SPS. But if you're coming in from the start, it will never be as good as this. And I probably shouldn't be as absolutist as that. But my point is that this was the perfect storm. It coincided with the final bull run of, the final run of a bull market for Bitcoin, as well as a massive jump into the play to earn and metaverse space, as well as the launch and release of a core set for Splinterlands, right? So there were a lot of things happening here that created this perfect storm of events that essentially ballooned up and created a bubble of these rewards that people came in and then were incentivized to exploit. So we look at this from like the bot perspective, for example. Like I said, there were bots running here, but nobody's complaining about them, and they weren't, farming rewards in the same way as they were before. So when we look at what ended up happening here, if all of a sudden a game is printing $200,000 worth of value every single day, yeah, to pay $10 for a spell book and then get unlimited rewards after that, you make your ROI back immediately. But at this point in time, and what we've seen from the overall spellbook purchases, there's no more incentive to run bots. There's no more bots coming into the space, right? Or at least not at the scale that they were during this point in time. So when that happened, right, all types of funny business, for lack of better words, ended up happening, right? People were creating multiple accounts. They were creating bot accounts. They were trying to set up scholarships. There was all this money just freely flowing around that was not sustainable. And so as we get back to this point in time, as we get back closer to the overall peg for DEC, many of those incentives will disappear if they have not already. So one of the major things that I think the team has had to do in response to this mistake here, right, is the fact that people paid a one-time fee for these bots. Right? If they paid a one-time fee, they don't ever have to really do anything again. If they, sure, there's some maintenance and whatever upkeep for the bots. But aside from that, at this point in time, they are still able to farm cards. They're still able to farm DEC. And, there's not, the marginal cost is minimal at this point in time. Now, the startup cost at this point, it probably isn't worth it, but the marginal cost to keep a server of bots running is probably insignificant to the amount that you can get from the bots you already have, which leads us to this rewards rework update, which is going to require everyone or every account to own cards in order to get some value. So now it's making everybody who wants to participate in the ecosystem, or who wants to earn from the ecosystem, participate in that ecosystem as well. So here's my big takeaway from all of this. All right. And so we have what the core issue was, and that was tying the airdrop 1-to-1. We know that that's going to end at a certain point, right? And once that ends, there's going to be a whole shift in the economy of the game. But I think one of the important things that we should at least consider, and again, this is just my humble opinion here, but when we look at play to earn, I think everybody just has play to earn wrong. I think the mindset that you can come in and make significant amounts of money from a game is this fantasy that we all live through for a short period of time, but that was never going to be sustainable, right? There's no game out there, at least not at this point in time, that is going to pay you more than you put into it, right? You're not going to be able to get more out of something. And to the team's main point, what they are trying to incentivize here is really the core of what play to earn is and should be, and that is you own your assets. Now, this makes the most sense in trading card games, which is why I've gravitated to Splinterlands over a lot of the other play to earn games. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with them. I'm just saying I owned Magic cards. I mean, I still do. I own Pokemon cards. I understand the value of that because it's a 1-to-1 physical, correlation that I can visually see and, of course, mentally understand. So doing this and playing this and understanding how this is all going to unfold in the future, the idea for me still is that if you want to play this game, it will never be the way that it was and the way that it is intended, right? It'll never be about earning a ton of DEC. It will be about playing a game with cards. Sure, you make 25, 50 cents, maybe $1, right? As we get back to the DEC peg, you're going to earn a little something for your time. But really the rewards, and this is where I think the team is going with the whole rewards rework, is the fact that the rewards are that you get more cards, you get more assets. Imagine if you were able to play Magic cards or able to play Pokemon back in the day. Sorry, this is the only frame of reference that I have, but every time you played, right, you showed up, you played a couple games every day, you were able to get more cards. So this is, I made a video a couple weeks back where I was just like, what if the point of Splinterlands isn't really about the rewards, but it's more about, rewards in terms of tokens like DEC or SPS, but it's more about getting cards. Like, would you be okay with that? Because that, I feel, is the future of play to earn, at least in this game, but I'm sure every game is going to go along a similar course, right? Where it's just, you can't be printing value because at the end of the day, everybody's going to be selling. Like, look at the sell pressure that's happened on SPS. Look at the sell pressure that's happened on DEC to a certain extent, right? The only reason that people are still buying DEC at this point in time or holding DEC is because it's getting almost like a 200% APR. But that will end. And once it does, we go back to the very basics of where this game came from and what the roots of it are. And that to me is what, is really what the value is going to be in the long term, which brings me back to the whole thesis that I've had previously of only the people who enjoy playing the game for the game itself are going to stick around and are going to enter into the space. This right here, this whole thing created the wrong incentives, right? It created the wrong incentives and it brought in the wrong people. And again, many people like myself, I came in for the wrong reasons, right? I looked at this as an investment and said, how can I make some money off of it, right? But I stayed for the game. And I know that there's many other people out there in this community specifically, as well as the broader Splinterlands community, who have done the same exact thing. They see that what the team is working on, they believe in this long term, and they know that this is a game that has a certain level of sustainability because the creators are focused on creating an awesome game and an awesome experience. Again, it's not about can we pay out a bunch of people? Can we change lives in that way? Now, that is an awesome side effect. And you've heard Aggro in the past say, like, it's awesome that we've created Splinternaires, as he's called it, right? Splinterlands Millionaires. But that is never the goal. The goal is not to make everybody rich, because at the end of the day, keep in mind, this is all just being printed. It's all magic internet money, right? But the idea is that there are deflationary assets here when it comes to specific cards, and you can own those cards, and they will, over time, as the game continues to develop and grow, will hold their value. And the team is focused and dedicated to making sure that they provide as much value to asset holders in the game. So, this here was nice, and I'm grateful that it happened because it brought somebody like myself in. But this was never supposed to be what Splinterlands was about. This was something where the entire market pumped, and you had a perfect storm, essentially, of things that happened that created all of the exploits, that created all of the wrong incentives, brought in all of the wrong mindsets. And as we wash out of that, right? In that last video that I posted, as we wash out those people in a good way, right? Hopefully not in a. I don't mean that to be. I'm not trying to offend anybody here, right? It's just like people are realizing that they weren't here for the game. I know there's a lot of people who are upset, saying that the game isn't doing whatever. I lost a ton of money. I'm genuinely sorry about that, because when I was in this, I couldn't see it either, right? But I've made the decision that I like the game enough that I'm sticking around for the long term, whereas many other people don't really care about the game. They're here for the gains, and the gains are no longer to be had, right? To me, the only gains really to be had are SPS, and that's why I've been stacking as much as I can. But from a gameplay standpoint, this will always be about owning your assets. And as we get back to that, as DEC becomes somewhat, insignificant in terms of its overall rewards, that is something that we are going to have to reckon with. There's going to be major changes to the economy over the next couple of months. And I just want to put this on your radar, right? What is the cause, the primary cause? What was patient zero, right? Where do we get to the root cause of what happened, and where do we go from here? And I think if you just look back a little bit further than a year, just use that as your template. Use that as your template and say, what was the game experience like 1 year ago? Ask any OG what it was like. And it was people just playing, sometimes in and out, sometimes renting their cards and not coming back, or renting their cards and then coming back at a later time. It was just people playing the game, trying to acquire assets over time. Now, the only caveat to this whole thing is that people look at this and they're waiting for it to happen again, not necessarily to DEC, but just a massive market pump. Can it happen? Of course, I'm not going to say never, because that would just be a wrong move, and I don't want to get clipped in the future saying it's never going to happen again. But it would require a certain amount of perfect storm elements to happen again, which is why for me, when I look at this and say, well, a big part of this perfect storm was Bitcoin making its run up, and I don't see Bitcoin making another run up until 2025. So I am trying to be very transparent with you on where I think, the future price pumps could be. And if you're not willing to wait around for that, again, there's no judgment here. If you there's other opportunities in the market, right? So if you are not willing to wait around because you're looking to make money and not because you enjoy playing the game, I get it. And I'm telling you right now that I don't see one of the elements of the perfect storm happening until 2025, when the next halving happens. There's just so many, global macroeconomic issues. I'd love to be wrong about that. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to be wrong about that. But I'm just trying to hedge my own bets and keep my emotional state in check for where I think things play out in the future. The other elements that could play into this would be the release of Rebellion, which is another major set, as well as, there's a lot of other factors that are coming in for SPS and utility. So that in and of itself could create some kind of decoupling from the rest of the market, which I think we're all hopeful will. But if we're talking about having this massive run up across the entire market, I don't know that happens again, at least not until Bitcoin makes another run and we get a massive influx of people who, again, at that point in time, will probably be coming in for the wrong reasons. And then you who are here now buying up these cards, winning these cards, getting these cards as rewards for 2 cents, 5 cents, whatever it is, when those cards balloon up and do their 10x, you'll be the one selling and dumping on them in the future, right? Because you will have lived it, you will have seen it, and you'll know that, this feels a lot like 2021. I'm going to take some chips off the table. At least that's the way that I'm looking at it, right? So that's all I have for you in this video. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Again, I'm just trying to distill it to what was the one major thing that caused all of these issues. And the good news is it is going away, right? It is going away in less than 3 months. And this reward rework, I think, will be incredibly helpful. But if we look at it through this lens of it's not about earning DEC, it's about getting reward cards, building up your deck, playing in tournaments, right? Because tournaments, there's been a big focus now on tournaments, and I'm actually making a decent amount of SPS on these tournaments. Then it's just about owning your assets, and it's about playing a game that you enjoy, and not about making tons of money. The making tons of money will be a side effect if you stick around long enough. I do genuinely believe that, or at least that's why I'm sticking around, right? Just full disclosure. But at the end of the day, you know, this is what the game has been. And I think what the game will be or continue to be once the airdrop is over. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I will catch you all in the next video, and I will see you around the game. Take care.